and Amanda, welcome. It's so great to have you here talking about Girl State.
Hey, Christian. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
So happy to be here.
It's so funny. We had you here. I conducted this exact interview with you for Boy State 4 years ago now. And I'm so glad that you went back and you made this companion film, because it is striking and startling how many like gendered differences there are just in this program, like the way it's set up. Was that something that you were aware of right away, or was that more just like as you were making the film that you discovered that?
We've been thinking about Girl State even when we were making Boy State. We didn't know if we could make it, where we would make it, what the differences would be, but it seemed like, these are gender segregated programs, and it really provoked the question, how are they different? How do girls do this differently? And are the expectations that are put on them different? And what was exciting about making Girl State is we really got to explore those questions. And what's so interesting about Missouri, where we filmed it, is they were running Girl State and Boy State simultaneously. And so the girls got to look over and say, wait, what's happening at Boy State? And is that okay? And that was not a story we quite expected to find in such a kind of a profound way. But I think it really mirrors some of the societal differences that we see in the expectations that are placed on young women, and also the barriers that they face to rise to political power.
Just even the fact that like their singing is such a big part of their daily routine. That was not the case with Boy State, right? I mean,
Yeah. There was a Boy State song, but it didn't involve touching your nose and like sort of, there was a lot more sort of campiness, and there was military sort of leftover rituals in the Boy State experience that we didn't show a lot of, but there was less of that in Girl State.
Yeah, boys would like kind of spontaneously drop to the floor and do push-ups. The girls at Girl State would burst into song. And so it was a really very different environment. And how they do politics is just different. That's what was so interesting to see.
Yeah, I love that, these two events were happening at the same time, because especially in following Emily, it's so fascinating. She came there thinking that she was going to try one thing, that she would run for governor. And instead, she ends up going on this journalistic path to critique the differences. Did you, like, when you're finding the narrative of a film like this, I mean, you can't know that she's going to go on that path. How do you trace that journey?
Well, we did know that these programs often are a crucible for these kids, even in just the short time. It's a week-long experience. For some kids, they transform pretty fundamentally. They find their voice, they figure out who they are when they lose an election. How do they pivot? What do they pivot to? And I think that's super exciting as storytellers, especially for that age group, like a coming of age political moment. We hoped it would involve one of our main characters. We didn't know. There's nothing for sure in verite documentary filmmaking, but you kind of suspect one of these kids is either going to win or they're going to lose, and they're going to lose and do something surprising after. So that was Emily.
I think the alchemy of Boy State was casting, was finding these incredible young men. And it was hard to place that burden on ourselves to find subjects who are as strong, compelling, and complicated as we found in Boy State. And these young women, we looked far and wide in the state of Missouri, and they have, I think, a unique combination of confidence and vulnerability. It's not everybody who can stand up to the attention of cameras, but also rise to the top in a sea of 500 young women. And I think these girls, there are more of them. In this film, it's more of an ensemble. We have 7 characters, but they're each very different in politics, where they come from, what they want to achieve. And that is the drama of unscripted filmmaking, is watching them climb this ladder and confront their strengths and their limitations.
How do you go about conducting the casting process? How do you find these, in this case, these girls who you want to focus on over the course of your film?
So there were 500 to begin with, and we can't follow 500. So this time, unlike last time, we had Zoom, which is pretty unlikable, but also really useful for this kind of thing, which is, we got to visit with a large number. I had people helping me. We talked to probably over 200 kids. And often they would show us what was on their walls. You can learn a lot from a teenager. Like, what do you post on your wall? What medals do you have? How do you decorate your room? And in just having those casual conversations, you learn a lot, right? And then from there, we decided who felt the most comfortable, who wanted who would he go the next step with? Then we went and drove around Missouri and visited them at their homes, and that, was more information on who they were. And then you willow it down even more.
We had a secret weapon, which is we have 2 teenage daughters too, and I'd like to think we know something about kind of who they are and how they work and what they think about. So we actually put our 17-year-old to work. She was a PA on production, and our 14-year-old gave us editorial notes. So we had a teenage brain trust helping us figure this out, because one of the things we loved about Boy State is kids watched it. Teenagers watched the film, they loved it, they enjoyed it, they cursed, they cheered, they cried. And we want to make a film that young people can connect with. And I hope and I believe we did that with Girls State.
What do you hope that people take away from this film when they watch it? Do you hope that it inspires change in some way? Or
there's a saying that counselors will give at this program: democracy is not a spectator sport. And those programs definitely encourage kids to participate on any level, whether that's as an activist or just go out and vote or become a politician yourself. Whatever it is, I do think that that's the message of the programs, that's the message of our film. I think that what's special to this film is girls seeing themselves be leaders, modeling that behavior that maybe you don't see quite as much as you do with male politicians. So there's a special quality to this film that means a lot to me.
Well, as a filmmaker, one of your key tasks always is like finding the focus of your story. If you're a narrative filmmaker, it's how do you find focus on sets and dial into the moment. For a documentary, you must have shot so much footage, and then how do you pare this down to 90 minutes?
Well, that it was a challenge. There were a lot of characters. We had an enormous crew. Boy State was kind of like Rocky, and I think Girl State's like Nashville. It's like an Altman film. It's really an incredibly diverse ensemble. It's cut 2 important storylines. There's the Supreme Court, which is going to hear a big abortion case, and there's a race for governor, which is the highest office. And so it's got parallel stories, an A story and a B story, or an A story and an A story, and that's like a good problem to have as a storyteller. And it's, we shot it quickly in about 10 days, but it took a year to cut. And I think it was like, how do you kind of fit everything together, and what are the painful choices you have to make to find that kind of bouillon cube that is going to be the movie?